In 1939, Bell Telephone Laboratories either invented or stole the voder, which was a device that could generate human speech electronically and continuously in a very monotone structure. Now, that pathetic thing that they called the voder was a lot like a bagpipe in the sense that it had a drone note always going behind it. The noise caused the voice to ride on top of it. Let's take this to the modern age. Now, here's a voice that you're not supposed to be able to record. This is an electronic voice. The modern voder that's coming through your power lines and to wireless and through Wi-Fi signals in electromagnetic pulses, very much like the voder. You pick this up. A lot of people pick this up. Some people can hear it with their own ears. This is recorded in a bedroom. Now, do you hear the electronic monotone voice as if it's one note? La 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 la, like a Morse code voice. Just one note droning along, like the voder. This is the 21st century voder. Boy, voder, you sure sound dismal. Now, here's the modern voder trying to sound excited. Let's go back and talk about how we got here. How did we get to where we are today? Well, even the gatekeepers, Wikipedia, reference it. I don't need it. I'm just going to tell you about it. During the 40s, World War II, radar techs and radar operators would get up or near radars to work on them, and they were hearing clicks and pops behind them. Not in front of them, behind their heads. They would hear these sounds. At first they thought they were nuts. Pretty soon they figured out that they could actually hear radar. Something was going on with that. So soon after that, very soon after that, they discovered that you can hear these noises. Now imagine being military intelligence, weapons contractors, what that could mean. Also imagine what that could mean if you have something like the voder and you could turn that into a radar signal or an electromagnetic signal for people to hear. This started an arms race that you never even heard about. And that's where everything took off. So they spent the 50s and 60s developing this tech, started using it on people in the late 60s and in the 70s. Here's one story discussing a guy that is a TI now, or was a TI. I don't know if he's still alive, but they used to think that his aunt or his friend's mom was crazy. Let's check it out.
Government worker, she complained about this. This is my friend's mom. Said she would complain. This was in the 70s. She used to say this stuff. That once he did that government work, that's when all this stuff happened. And she was had been hospitalized several times, and we believed that had the same. We believed our mothers had the same disease. And then she would say, guess what? Exactly what she said. The government man can see you in any room. They talk right in my ear. I was like, wow, that's so insane. And we were like 10 years old, or less than 10 years old, early 70s. It's exactly the experience. I mean, it's exactly your experience.
So think about that. They had been working on this tech, got it going, and then they used it on all these different people to commit crimes. So let's go through some of the people that they got to commit crimes. See, in America and all over the world, in the 50s and early 60s and before that, you didn't have people hearing voices and snapping and freaking out all the time and killing people and going into places with guns. And why is that? And that's because these weapons weren't rampant at the time, but they were experimenting with them right around this time. Here's the killer prophet, John Fraser, who killed an Asian doctor. And this guy had become an environmentalist. He was a car mechanic, and God told him to quit driving his car. And basically, the voices that he was being hit with turned him into an eco-terrorist, if you will. Okay, so they are creating these people. This is where it starts. This is where it starts. And it runs through the Son of Sam. It runs through the Amityville horror. It runs through all of it. Every single one of these things that happens afterwards is completely controlled. So as I said, they hit a lot of people experimenting with this, drug users, derelicts, dissidents, people that joined cults. Our boy David Berkowitz here got himself put on the radar by joining a satanic cult. So that's what he did. He came up on the radar. They started hitting him with voices. If you look at his house, he punched holes in the walls where you could see where he was trying to figure out where the voices were coming from. He couldn't figure out where the voices were coming from. He was hearing quote unquote demons, not unlike our boy Nicholas Cruz. Okay. But back then, in this day, it took an operation to do this. Alright? It was a lot different than it is now. So, it took some manpower. Now it doesn't, and that's why it's gone rampant. But here our boy David Berkowitz, another famous killing, was all orchestrated by the same people feeding these people V2K that started with the Frey effect and the Bell Laboratories voter. The DeFeo family, they got themselves put on the radar because they were allegedly involved in organized crime. The government was investigating them. Butch was the partier, the drug user, so they targeted the family and targeted him because he would seem like the most unstable person out of all of them. They shot voices, made it seem to him that people were conspiring against him in the other room. They did this to a lot of people. They even did this to, I believe, Myron May. He heard the exact same thing, his girlfriend's family conspiring against him in the other room. So you've got DeFeo. They drive DeFeo nuts. They get him to do this crazy ass shit. And then, since the equipment is already set up, it's been there. It was, it's been there. And then the Lutz family buys the house, so they figure, hey, we're going to keep doing this and see if we can drive them out of the house with it. It wasn't supernatural. All of it was electromagnetic weapons that they had been testing and working with for years. Many, many people were targeted in the 70s while they polished this stuff up. Then through the 80s, it took a big turn. They were able to do it completely differently. Okay? Now, I bet a lot of you remember the REM song, What's the Frequency, Kenneth? Right? I bet a lot of you don't know what it's really about. Dan Rather was attacked by a guy in New York who came up, started punching him, asking him what the frequency was. Now, you know and I know, even though the rest of the population doesn't realize what's going on yet, but they will soon, that this was an early target from the 80s that was told through V2K that it was Dan Rather. I've said in other videos that they impersonate people's voices. It was probably somebody saying it was Dan Rather doing it, blah, 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 blah. It was coming from his station. So some guy attacked him, asking him what the frequency was, and REM ended up writing a song about it. This is when it started changing, and it was getting more vast, and people were being put in asylums all the time with all the same story. And what they were doing was they were shaping the going postal whole narrative. They were shaping mental illness in their form. So anything that they did would appear to be mental illness. They were changing things. Reality was changing. And at this point, they were literally able to sculpt reality. Because now, signs of schizophrenia were signs that they were creating, not real schizophrenia. So in my opinion, 1988 and 1989 were the last 2 years of free thought, real free thought. Because by 1990 and 1991, they had launched Operations Tower, Wedding Bells, Buzzsaw, which were mass mind control projects that were competing beyond the Russian woodpecker, and were doing psychic suppression, psychic subversion, mental suppression, mental subversion, especially during sleep, on the entire population. Everything changed. It got dark. And what they did was they shifted the entertainment industry to match that. So what did you have come along? You had this dark, it went from, this hair, cock rock and MC Hammer to gangster rap, dark ass gangster rap, and dark ass grunge music. Everything got dark. The mood shifted, all intentionally, because everything was shifted intentionally. And if you were alive during that period, whether you were a kid or an adult, and you were aware, your dreams and everything changed right around that period. This is when it went gangbusters en masse. All right. However, they were still tweaking things out for the individual. This was a mass thing that was affecting you, but it wasn't tailored for everybody yet. But they're getting there. They're getting there, right? Before the empire. When did these mass mind control programs pick up? In the 90s. When did these take off? 90, 91. Right when Russia went down. Weird. Because from 1976 till right when Russia went down, the Russian woodpecker was going at it, getting into everything. And what was it getting into? Like I've been saying with this, oh yeah, your power grid coming right into your house. What's amazing about that is back then they could freely speak about it. 2, ours picked up right when Russia's stopped. Well, why is that? Is it because we just decided to do it after the Russians? Or is there a government that has both feet on each side of the fence that's playing games that can run it in Russia and then run it in the United States? What's going on here? Something to think about. So people saw these randomly, but in mass every day. Around 97 to 1999, these started showing up over Florida, California. In California, they were there much earlier in Florida, but they are all over the Midwest, everywhere. I remember the first time I saw one, and I thought it was a skywriter, because it looked like skywriting. And I stopped, and I was watching it. It was in the evening in the summer, but it just kept going straight. And it just kept going straight. And I seriously thought they were going to write something, Eat at Joe's, whatever. And it just kept going straight. And I couldn't believe it. And then soon they were everywhere, all the time. And it seemed like nobody noticed. I couldn't believe it. But soon you had these everywhere. And then things really began to change. It was as if the sky, the air was electromagnetic. And these things started getting into people. And people started complaining of Morgellons in 2000, and vibrations, and zaps, and buzzing in their ears, and you name it, voices, whatever. This is when it could be individualized for the person. This is when things changed. And right around that time is when these crazy, nonsensical shootings began. That is when they really started. You had wireless, Wi-Fi, cell phones spreading out, cell phone towers spreading out. You had free Wi-Fi starting to blossom everywhere with the chemtrails. Everything was spreading out, and then all of a sudden you have all these random nonsensical shooters that all heard somebody either telling them to do it, egging them to do it, telling them they had to do it to get something to stop. Every single one of these was a nonsense shooting that made no sense when you looked at it. No motive, nothing. This was the beginning of the no motive gun crime. Voila. But that wasn't enough, see, because this system had too hard of a time figuring out who you were with just a bunch of fungus and nanodust and shit that makes a dirty circuit board on your body for tracking. It was too hard for them to do it. So what did they do? They came up with the smart meter. The smart meter has your personal address on it. See, every meter before this was just a meter. All it did was measure electricity. This has an IP address, just like a phone number or anything else. They know who lives there, so they know who is in there, who is sensitized with the dust and the crap, and who they are magnetizing. And this is where it went full on gangbusters. So in 1991, there was mass mind control to have an effect. By 97 to 2002, they were tuning it in with chemtrails and shit, where they could hit people and convince them to go do things that they didn't want to do. Now they know who exactly they're doing it to without any people needing to be out in the field doing work. This is where AI can take over. This is what's up now. This is the 21st century. But see, that wasn't enough. The voter, then the fry effect, then building a weapon from that, then being able to pick who gets hit with the mind control and the mass mind control. And be able to choose who's going to go nuts, be able to profile people. Well, now that's not good enough, because now they want to pick who gets sick from it, because it can mimic any flu symptom out there tenfold. So now you have a sickness-inducing signal or sickness-inducing signals that can appear completely random. Dissidents beware. People aren't grasping this. They soon will. That's a recorder on a pillow. That's where we're at in 2020. I can tell you what it is. Bricklayers are hearing it. Doctors are hearing it. Police are hearing it. Janitors are hearing it. Everybody's hearing it. But nothing's being said. But all the things line up. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Some people might ask, why? Why? Well, you could send messages to people that you don't want other people hearing. You do it to make mental illness appear much more prevalent than it really is. There's a lot of money in psychiatry, medications, a lot of money. You can make it appear that people can just snap. That way you can control a narrative to promote the idea of random gun violence, to promote the idea of preemptive crime arrests. You got to get them before they do it, right? To create Manchurians and to test neurotech in general and to test this technology in general, because soon there's going to be a lot of money to be made off video games and bullshit that you people are going to buy. So it started with the voter, the Fry effect, Son of Sam. What's the frequency, Ken? Chemtrails, cell phones, and now here we are in the age of motiveless crimes and eternal mysteries. And this is where we're at. So use your heads, put it together. I have thousands of subscribers, and each time I make one of these videos, I'm just chipping away at their tree. Chip, 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 chip. And soon it's going to fall. Look out for Charlie.